Flour sack baking mix. When store-bought cake mixes didn't exist, and every grain of flour had to stretch a little farther, Depression-era families came up with their own version, and they kept it hidden in the cupboard inside a reused flour sack. You didn't have shelves lined with colorful boxes. What you had was a cloth sack filled with something far more precious. A homemade emergency mix made from dry flour, a pinch of salt, a little sugar, and baking soda or powder, if you had it. Some folks even labeled the sack with a hand-stitched tag, for cake or biscuits only. Women would gather on weekends and make these in batches. Sometimes they used muslin or old apron fabric when the flour sack wore out. They'd measure dry ingredients by memory, no recipe books, just the feel of the scoop in their hand, and tie off each mix with twine, tucking handwritten instructions inside. Those little scraps of paper became family treasures. You'd pull one out on a Sunday morning or just before company arrived. Add water, maybe an egg if a neighbor had extras, or a spoonful of lard from the jar by the stove. Stir it in a dented tin bowl, then pour it into a buttered pan, or whatever baking dish hadn't cracked in the heat. And when that warm smell filled the house, sugar, flour, home, you remembered that it wasn't just about food, it was about pride. These pre-packed flour sack mixes were a sign of planning, care, and quiet wisdom. Kids thought it was magic. Open a sack, add a splash of something wet, and out came dinner rolls, biscuits, pancakes, or a simple depression cake. But you knew better. It wasn't magic. It was survival, pre-measured. Those sacks lived in bread boxes under the sink or hanging from hooks in the pantry. Some families traded them, bartering for eggs, fruit, or even a few hours of labor. "My mix for your carrots," someone would say, and deals were made over the back fence. Even after things got better, some grandmothers kept the habit. They'd smile and say, "just in case," because they remembered when those little sacks meant the difference between dinner and nothing at all. And in the spring, when pantries thinned and gardens weren't quite ready, folks looked outside, at the weeds underfoot, and saw dinner growing wild. Garden weed salad. You didn't need a garden to eat fresh. You needed sharp eyes and a bit of courage, because during the Dust Bowl, dinner didn't always come from the market. It came from the lawn. You'd head outside with a tin bowl or a flour sack, past the broken fence, under the clothesline, in the spots where the grass was patchy. That's where the good stuff grew. Chickweed, lamb's quarters, dandelion greens, purslane, names that sound like weeds to some folks today, but back then they were wild blessings, full of iron, calcium, and flavor, and best of all, they were free. Your mother taught you what to look for. This one has soft leaves. That one tastes peppery. Don't touch that. That's not food. You learned quick. A wrong pick meant a bad stomach. The right pick meant supper. Once you'd gathered a handful of each, you rinsed them in a bucket, shaking off the dirt and bugs. Then into the bowl they went, tossed with whatever you had, a drizzle of vinegar, a spoonful of bacon grease, or just salt and pepper. If there was leftover potato, crumbled bread, or a few chopped onions, all the better. The salad was sharp, clean, and strong, a mouthful of bitterness and bite, the kind of taste that reminded you it was real food, not filler. Some called it yard salad. Others just said, "We're eating weeds tonight." But everyone ate it. It wasn't just a side. It was proof that even when crops failed, the land still offered something. You just had to know where to look. Chickweed showed up early in spring. Dandelions came with the sun. Lamb's quarters lasted through heat. And purslane, purslane grew in cracks, in driveways, between stones. The tougher the land, the stronger it thrived. Old-timers passed the knowledge down like gospel. God made food that didn't need planting, they'd say. Just pick it before the chickens do. And maybe that's what survival looked like, walking outside, kneeling in the dust and gathering dinner leaf by leaf, weed by weed. Today, some of those same plants are sold in fancy markets under new names, but you know the truth. They were Dust Bowl greens, backyard supper, food that didn't come from a can, but from the strength of your own two hands, We just walked through 30 kitchen miracles, not recipes from glossy cookbooks, but raw, honest survival. These weren't dishes born from luxury. They were born from grit, from grandmothers who could turn potato skins into broth, or a pile of dandelions into syrup, from kids who stirred vinegar into cleaning water and called it disinfectant, from men who sipped peanut shell coffee and called it just fine. If you felt something along the way, a memory, a scent, a voice you haven't heard in years, that's not by accident. That's legacy. Because this wasn't just food, it was wisdom, survival, love disguised as boiled peels and bacon grease. You didn't just eat these meals, you carried them, you passed them down, and even if the world has changed, the lessons haven't. Waste nothing, stretch everything. Feed with heart, not just ingredients. And now, maybe you'll try one. Or just remember how good it felt to watch your mother save the day with nothing but a tin of lard and a wooden spoon. Maybe you'll teach your grandkids what hot bacon dressing smelled like when it hit cold lettuce. Or how vinegar wasn't just for salad, it kept your whole house safe. These stories are ours. They don't belong in a history book. They belong in the kitchen, in the conversations, in the comments down below. So tell me, which dish brought back the clearest memory? Which one made you smile? Which one made you tear up just a little? Drop it in the comments. Let's build something together. A living recipe box full of truth, toughness, and taste.